When buying a home in a new state, there can be tons of things to know. So today we're going to go over 7 things that might surprise you when it comes to buying a home here in Pennsylvania. So depending on the state, the process of buying a home, the materials used to build a home, and the overall style of home can greatly vary. So let's talk more specifically about all of that in Pennsylvania. Hi there, I'm Corey Benhart, your Pennsylvania realtor. All of my contact information is below. I would love to hear from you. Ignore my eye, I have something in it and I can't get it out. Let's get started. First up, we have basements. If you're moving from a state where basements aren't common, you might be surprised to truly see how many homes here in Pennsylvania do have basements. Honestly, it's harder to find a home here in PA without a basement than it is with one. There are a couple of different types of basements. There are what we call cellars, which are small, dark, and wet. They're typically found in very old homes. There are both the standard finished and unfinished basements. It's very common for people to finish their basement because during the winter months here in Pennsylvania, it can get quite cold. So having the extra living space down in the basement definitely comes in handy. Most of the time, finished basements are just for additional living space, but sometimes people can get quite creative on how they use that space. I've seen movie theater basements, home gyms, spas, game rooms, work from home offices, and just about everything else that you can imagine. The next thing that might surprise you about buying a home here in Pennsylvania is that HOAs aren't that bad. I've heard stories from clients who have moved from the West Coast and the South, and they're always so against HOAs. They say that it doesn't matter, even if they find their perfect home that checks off all of their boxes, if it's in an HOA, they will not consider it. But then I explain that just because the HOAs or the notorious HOAs are in the state where you're moving from, that does not mean that that's how it is here in Pennsylvania. Of course, there may be some very strict HOAs somewhere throughout the state of Pennsylvania. I'm born and raised here in Pennsylvania. I've sold tons of homes in HOA communities. I've lived in HOA communities in the past, and I've never heard of anybody saying how completely strict or how it's just such a pain to live in an HOA. It's never anything that I've heard of. When it comes time for us to tour homes together, and if there's a home that you really love, but it is in an HOA community and you're a little concerned about that, we can review the HOA documents, and then if for any reason there was be something in the HOA documents that you don't want or you don't agree with or you just don't overall like and feel comfortable with, you can back out of the sale with all of your money back to you as long as it's within the allotted time period. So the next thing that might surprise you about buying a home here is that pools aren't really desired. If you're moving from a state where almost every single home has an in-ground pool and it's completely common to have a pool, well, when it comes time to move to PA, you might be a bit shocked because truthfully, a lot more people and a lot more buyers would consider a home without a pool than buyers that go and seek out a home with a pool. That might shock you, honestly, because pools can be so much fun, refreshing, beautiful, etc. But there are some major downsides to owning a home with an in-ground pool here in PA. First, there's only really about 4 to 5 months that you can use the pool if it's not heated. So for more than 50% of the year, something that costs a lot of money, takes a lot of work to maintain, and just cannot be used for more than 50% of the year has to just be covered up. Most people don't want to deal with the cost and the hassle of maintaining it, treating it, cleaning the water, etc. for only 4 to 5 months of use. But if you would like a pool and using it less than half of the year is okay with you, then let's go ahead and find a home with a pool. One last thing to keep in mind is that when it comes time to sell your house with a pool, do remember that, as I said, most buyers prefer a home without a pool. So you would either have to fill in the pool, offer to fill in the pool to a potential buyer, or just wait until a buyer that wants a pool comes around and buys your home. The next thing that might surprise you is that Pennsylvania is a title company state, not an attorney state. Once you submit an offer and have your offer accepted, a title company helps the buyer and seller with the paperwork to get ready for settlement. Some states, such as our neighboring state of New Jersey, is known to be an attorney state, which means there is no title company. So once you're under contract on a home, you'll have to hire an attorney to create all the documents and get everything ready for settlement, which will likely cost a lot more since you're having to pay attorney fees and not just title company fees. Another thing that might surprise you when it comes to buying a home here is that that we don't have the endless supply of new construction communities like other states do have. We do have a good number of new construction communities, but in comparison to other states where it's almost impossible to drive down the road and not see a new construction neighborhood being built, we have a lot more resale homes that are available than new construction. I often have clients who say that they're only open to new construction communities. They say that they don't want to deal with the headaches that resale homes cause. And that's a very blanket statement and not really accurate because it depends on the resale home. The saying they don't build them like they used to is certainly very true nowadays. I have seen resale homes that date back to the early to mid 1930s that are built absolutely solid with no issues at all. We obviously have much newer resale homes here as well, but I've seen plenty of old homes that are in amazing condition. And keep in mind, don't base it off of the age of the home, but instead on how the previous owner has maintained and updated that home throughout the years. And when it comes to new construction, you're definitely going to want to make sure to research the builder and also make sure to ask your realtor if I'm familiar with the builder and if we've ever worked together before, and we can talk more about the specific builder and kind of what their history is like. Truthfully, many people choose new construction to prevent headaches with their home, but they don't research and make sure that they choose the builder carefully. So they do end up in a new home, but that new home starts to fall apart immediately and it's just one big headache. If you're moving here, we can definitely talk more about it, but I would recommend that you're open to both new construction and resale homes, of course, depending on your timeline. Next, let's talk about radon gas, which will definitely surprise you when it comes to buying a home here. Radon gas isn't present in every state, so if you've never heard of it, radon is a silent gas that is colorless, odorless, and tasteless. It can seep through the foundations of buildings and homes, through cracks and openings in the foundation and the walls. Once the gas is inside, it can eventually accumulate to unhealthy levels. The EPA recommends anything between 2 to 4. You should definitely have it remediated. I've seen plenty of homes have radon remediation systems. It's really not that big of a deal and honestly pretty common. A radon system can range cost-wise anywhere from $1,200 to $1,500, maybe a little bit more depending on the specific location of your home. The very strange thing about radon gas is that it is very random. It doesn't depend on where in Pennsylvania you buy a home. It doesn't depend on the town, the zip code, anything like that. It really depends on the specific lot that your home is on, and just depending on the soil and the rocks that are decomposing underneath the foundation of your home, which then releases this gas. Radon is property specific, so just because your new home may have radon, the next door neighbor may not, and vice versa. It really does depend, which is why I always recommend my clients who are buying new homes to always get a radon test to make sure that your radon levels are either not existent at all or at a very low, moderate level. So the next thing that might surprise you about buying a home in Pennsylvania is oil heat. If you've never lived in Pennsylvania, New York, or New England, you might have never even heard of oil heat. Essentially, oil heat is just a gas tank, but to heat your home. Houses with oil heat have a big oil tank inside their basement, garage, or outside the house. And when it runs low, an oil truck comes to your house to refill it, and it's pretty much that simple. But it is expensive because the price of the oil depends on the overall oil and gas price on the gas market. So it can get pretty costly depending on what temperature you keep your home at during the winter. Only 16% of homes in the entirety of Pennsylvania use oil heat, so it's definitely something to keep an eye out for. Some people love it, other people hate it because of the fluctuating cost in oil. I am seeing a lot more townships put in natural gas lines in the street, and then it's easier to hook up your home right to the street on the natural gas, because natural gas is much more efficient and more of a cleaner heating source than oil. So if you're making the move to Pennsylvania, I would love to help you find your perfect Pennsylvania home. All of my contact information is below. Until then, I will see you over on this next video.